Hi, welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of the Weekly Wave. I'm Matthew Lyons.
And I'm Aaron Johnson.
And our special guest here today is the new principal of Abington High School, Mr. Jonathan Bourne. How are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
So obviously, it's your first year. It's a big year, too. How do you even handle this?
So I got to be honest, one of the biggest helps in a lot of this is having been an assistant principal here, over 10 years ago. It was great when I looked at the school website to see so many of the staff members that I got to know and trust and really enjoy working with are still here. And that's Superintendent Schaefer, Dr. Michella, Dr. Sullivan, who hired me, was a great help to transition, Ms. Flommer, and a lot of other fantastic teachers that I enjoyed working with. It's been a huge help. Just having known them and know that I have a really reliable, trustworthy staff here has made a big help in planning for the year ahead.
Awesome.
What has been the biggest challenge of trying to run a school during COVID-19?
Yeah, it's hard to say that there's one singular challenge. I would definitely say it's both planning for an uncertain future, so it takes a lot of kind of creative imagination, but at the same time staying nimble to what you have planned, to being able to pivot from it and not get too fascinated with your own plans. But I would say the single greatest challenge is how almost everything we do is new. The new schedule, new arrangement to bridge block, and how we do attendance. Even though some things are the same, we have to change it. So almost everything that has been done this year had to either be created from scratch or adapted to fit our new circumstances. So it just takes so much longer to do everything. So everything's new.
That's insane. I mean, even when did you know that you were going to be coming back as principal? Did you have a clear timeline of okay, things need to be done by this point, or?
Yes, so I knew by the end of April, beginning of May, that I was going to be coming back. So I know what I signed up for. So Superintendent Schaefer, it says, "I'm sorry it's so complicated." I said, I know what I got into. So I had a sense I was able to start doing some work in May and June, which helped to just get a heads up and connect with folks and hire an assistant principal. And so we have Ms. Clements, who's outstanding. So I was very fortunate to be able to add her to the team. I knew through July and August what we needed to do was to build what would be basically our master schedule. Mm-hmm. I also knew, I don't know how I knew this, but I told Ms. Clements, I said, we're going to make a plan for July and we're going to throw it away. And then we're going to make a plan for August. And that actually turned out to be what happened. So that in trying to hear from the state all the rules that we had to incorporate, which changed in every 2 weeks, seemingly on Friday nights, we'd get new rules and we'd have to change our plans. So that was the biggest thing, is just trying to figure out, making sure we had enough time to do everything we needed to do. So it was just kind of what a normal July and August looks like. We knew would be very busy, and it was.
Because we had Superintendent Schaefer in here earlier, and he was saying the exact same thing, how literally they would make a plan, it'd get canceled 2 weeks later, and they'd have to make a whole new plan, start
Correct.
from scratch. That must have been so frustrating.
It was, once it happened a couple times, you grew to anticipate it. So I think what was hard is you wanted to give people, parents, students, and teachers answers that are set in stone, and you basically had to say all this is set in clay. Nothing's been hardened, nothing's been fired. So right now, this is how the plan looks, but if you check with me tomorrow, the plan might change. And that's not the best for students, parents, and staff to then plan off of, right? Because they're trying to mentally prepare what they need to do, and to always be telling them it might look like this or it could be that. So it was, it was a new challenge. I think the good part was really have an outstanding team of colleagues to work with here, administrative, mentioned Superintendent Schaefer, as well as my colleagues, principals and assistant principals in the buildings. So it was really helpful, and I think the fact that every single school in Massachusetts and the country is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just us trying to figure it out under tremendous scrutiny. Everybody was trying to figure this out.
So you were actually the assistant principal at Abington for a while. And when you came back, even though there were all these different changes and rules and guidelines, was it did you kind of have deja vu, or was it completely different?
Oh, yeah, in some ways, driving down Route 18 and just, seeing like, oh, Pizzings, I remember Pizzings, and Trukey's, oh yeah, they have great calzones, and just kind of going back, because it was a decade ago, absolutely, pulled back a lot of things, and many, many staff members or people I knew very well and liked working with. So it was almost felt like I could just hop back into those friendships and relationships, which is great. But absolutely, it pulled in some sense of nostalgia. So,
yeah, and you said you've been gone for a decade. Has the Abington community changed a lot, or not really?
I wish I could speak with more authority about that, but my life in Abington since July has been basically at 201. I haven't been able to get out. Normally in a typical year, you'd be out at games and football fields and chatting with folks, and that's obviously restricted for all the reasons we know why. So. I'm learning, I guess, some of the face and the dimensions of the population has changed. The town looks strikingly similar. Route 18 is a disaster, though. I mean, that's something that is new, but I think that was always the case, but for different reasons. So I know the town is changing demographically as some of the other towns around have, but that kind of the culture, the spirit, the pulse of the town is exactly what I remember. So,
awesome. So you were a principal at Needham, and actually a teacher at Brockton, amongst other places. What have you learned from there that you can apply to Abington?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, again, like there's one singular lesson. I think the one thing I've learned is to embrace is how little, I don't want to say how little I know. I've learned to always not be surprised at learning new things. That whenever you feel like you've got the answers to everything, something new comes up, and it just, is humbling, and this year I think is case in point. Right? It's helpful to have the past prior experience. Not all of it applies, right? But it is just good to have a knowledge base to go from. And this year has been a repeated case study and new things that need new solutions. So I think the varied experiences in a lot of different schools has taught me that there isn't one way to do things right. There's multiple ways to do things correctly. There's a lot of things that schools do in common, and there's some wisdom as to why they do things a certain way. So it just provides a different set of experiences and things that might not seem possible and another school does it. You can say, that is possible, here's how it's done. Or to learn bad lessons and mistakes other schools had. All of that's experience just to provide, I think, a broader spectrum of possible solutions and improvements that can be done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have kind of like a lengthy question, so please take your time with this. But with the new schedule in place during school, not a lot of students are able to kind of meet you or get to know you as they would a regular principal,
right.
Like in a regular year, sorry. So how would you describe your personality and like your philosophies as a principal this year?
Sure. So one of the things I want to distinctly do is to meet as many students as possible. As we talked prior to the show getting started, it's harder because I don't see students as often. And when I do see you have masks on, and it's just a little harder to do face and names.
Yeah.
And the cafeteria setup, which is not what we want, but it's what it has to be, is fairly, isolating. And not many students are psyched to have me come over in my very loud voice, chat them up about their Ritz crackers or their Cool Ranch Doritos. So I don't get to have those conversations. So personality-wise, I think, I love being in schools. This is where I belong. I belong working in public schools, and I've known that for as long as I think since I was a sophomore in high school myself, that I was going to be a teacher or something. I knew that was going to happen. So, personality-wise, I'm happy almost every single day you see me here. Not to say that there aren't challenges, and there are days that are tough. But the students are actually just like the raw energy we all work on. So every day you all show up is a good day. Tomorrow, for example, it's quieter on here. It's actually busier and harder,
really?
Believe it or not,
Wow.
yeah, than when the students are in here. It's much more enjoyable. You walk into a class and see someone struggling with a math problem and they figure it out. That's what we do. That's fuel for us. So, my thing is I want to make connections with kids, get to know them. It's really important for me to hear and see what their experiences like are in school, because that helps inform any program improvements or changes, just so I get a general sense of what the student life is like here. So I've made a few connections with students who are a little bit more forward and saying, hey, Mr. Bourne, let's chat it out. I will kind of seek out the quieter kids who kind of go under the radar, as it were, because that's who I was as a student. And I think there's just a lot to learn from those folks as well.
Right. Amazing answer.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was great to finally have this conversation, to chip away at the puzzle that is Mr. Bourne.
Hopefully I'm not that complex. I kind of just am pretty much right out there with who I am, but
Thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for a brand new episode of The Weekly Wave.
Make sure to follow us on our social media at the Green River Gazette and the Weekly Wave.
Stay safe.
Goodbye, everybody.